Sarah Martinez laughed when her grandmother warned her about the weeping woman who haunts Riverside Park. "Just old folklore," she said, rolling her eyes at what seemed like another made-up story to keep kids from wandering alone at night. But 3 weeks later, Sarah found herself standing at the edge of that same park at 2 a.m., her phone recording something that would make her question everything she thought she knew about reality. What she captured that night has left investigators baffled and turned a skeptic into a true believer. But to understand how someone so rational could experience something so impossible, we need to go back to the beginning. The skeptic's first encounter. Sarah Martinez was the kind of person who had an explanation for everything. As a junior psychology major at the local university, she spent her days studying cognitive biases and learning how the human brain creates patterns where none exist. She could tell you exactly why people see faces in clouds or hear voices in white noise. Her textbooks were filled with rational explanations for every supernatural claim imaginable. So when her grandmother started talking about La Llorona haunting Riverside Park, Sarah's response was automatic and immediate. "Abuela, that's just a story parents tell to keep kids from playing near the water at night," she said, not even looking up from her statistics homework. "It's basic psychology. Communities create these legends as a form of social control." Her grandmother's weathered hands paused over the beans she was sorting, but Sarah continued. "The crying woman by the river? It's probably just wind through the trees, maybe an owl. People's minds fill in the blanks and create a narrative that fits their cultural expectations." Her grandmother shook her head slowly. "Mija, some things can't be explained in your books." Sarah's confidence in her rational worldview made her dismissive of anything that couldn't be measured or tested. She prided herself on being the family member who didn't fall for superstitions. While her cousins crossed themselves when passing the park after dark, Sarah took a different route simply because it was faster. She wasn't avoiding anything supernatural. She was just being efficient. But efficiency became harder to maintain as the weeks passed. Mrs. Hernandez from down the street mentioned hearing crying sounds near the water during her evening walks. Sarah explained it away as urban wildlife adapting to city sounds. When the mailman started taking a longer route to avoid the park's eastern edge, Sarah attributed it to confirmation bias. People were looking for evidence of something that wasn't there. The reports kept coming, though. A jogger claimed she heard sobbing that seemed to move along the riverbank. A teenage couple swore they saw a figure in white near the old stone bridge. Each account fed Sarah's frustration with what she saw as mass hysteria. She found herself giving impromptu lectures to anyone who would listen about how legends spread through communities like viruses, infecting rational thought with irrational fear. Here's where Sarah's scientific training actually worked against her. Her psychology professors had taught her that skepticism was a shield against deception and self-delusion. She believed that knowledge could protect her from the primitive fears that gripped others. What she didn't realize was that this confidence created a blind spot. She was so certain that her education made her immune to supernatural experiences that she never considered what might happen if something genuinely unexplainable occurred. The pressure from her community grew stronger each day. Her grandmother's warnings became more urgent. Neighbors started asking if she'd heard the crying too. Even her usually rational father suggested she might want to study somewhere other than the park's library pavilion. Sarah felt surrounded by people who had abandoned logic in favor of ancient fears. The final push came during a family dinner when her uncle mentioned that his friend, a security guard, had started requesting different patrol routes to avoid the park area. "Even trained professionals are staying away," her grandmother said, her eyes fixed on Sarah. "Maybe it's time you listened." That night, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to let folklore control her life or her community's behavior. Armed with her smartphone and years of scientific training, she planned to visit Riverside Park at the exact time when the crying was supposedly most active, 2 a.m. She would record everything, document the absence of supernatural activity, and finally put this ridiculous legend to rest. Sarah believed she was about to prove that urban legends were nothing more than collective delusions. She had no idea she was walking straight into something that would shatter everything she thought she knew about reality. When reality defies explanation. Sarah arrived at Riverside Park with her iPhone 12 Pro Max, chosen specifically for its advanced night mode and high-quality audio recording capabilities. She had downloaded a decibel meter app and a spectrum analyzer to measure any sounds she encountered. Her approach was methodical. She planned to walk the entire perimeter, stopping every 50 feet to record 2-minute audio samples while simultaneously filming. Sarah even brought a small tripod to eliminate camera shake and ensure her documentation would meet scientific standards. The first 20 minutes yielded exactly what she expected. Nothing supernatural. Her recordings captured typical nighttime sounds: distant traffic, rustling leaves, the gentle flow of water over rocks. Sarah felt vindicated as she moved systematically through her documentation process. Each recording reinforced her belief that the legend was nothing more than overactive imaginations, combined with ordinary environmental sounds. Then her phone picked up something that made her blood freeze. At 2:17 a.m., while recording near the old stone bridge, her audio captured a sound that defied every rational explanation she could conjure. The crying wasn't coming from any identifiable direction. It seemed to emanate from the water itself, rising and falling with an otherworldly quality that human vocal cords simply cannot produce. Sarah's hands trembled as she watched the spectrum analyzer display frequencies that shouldn't exist in natural human speech. But the audio was just the beginning. When Sarah reviewed her video footage later, she discovered visual anomalies that her naked eye had missed in the darkness. A translucent figure appeared in several frames, moving along the riverbank with movements that seemed to flow rather than walk. The figure's proportions shifted between frames, sometimes appearing solid, other times barely visible like morning mist. Most unsettling was how the figure seemed to interact with the environment. Ripples appeared on the water's surface where no physical presence should have caused them. The scientific analysis of Sarah's evidence began immediately. Audio engineers at the local university ran her recordings through advanced filtering software designed to identify mechanical or electronic interference. They found none. The crying sounds contained harmonic structures that human voices cannot produce, yet they clearly originated from an organic source. Video analysis revealed that the translucent figure cast shadows despite being partially transparent, a physical impossibility that equipment couldn't replicate through malfunction. Dr. Patricia Chen, a professor of acoustics, spent 3 weeks analyzing Sarah's audio files. Her conclusion was troubling. The frequencies we're seeing here don't match any known natural phenomena. The harmonic progression suggests an intelligent source, but the tonal qualities are unlike anything in our database of human vocalizations. When pressed for alternative explanations, Dr. Chen admitted that conventional science couldn't account for what Sarah's phone had captured. Sarah's transformation from skeptic to believer follows a pattern seen in similar cases worldwide. The woman who once lectured others about confirmation bias and mass hysteria now speaks cautiously about experiences that shattered her scientific worldview. She describes feeling like everything she thought she knew about reality suddenly seemed fragile and incomplete. The most unsettling aspect of Sarah's experience wasn't what she recorded, but how it changed her perception of everyday life. Simple sounds now carry weight. Shadows seem deeper. The boundary between possible and impossible has blurred permanently. Sarah discovered that some knowledge cannot be unknown, and some doors cannot be closed once they've been opened. Her story raises questions that extend far beyond one night in a park. Questions about the nature of reality itself, and what happens when our most fundamental assumptions crumble. In conclusion, Sarah's experience reveals something profound about the stories that persist in our communities. Her transformation from skeptic to believer forces us to confront an unsettling question. What if some urban legends endure not because they're made up, but because they're trying to tell us something real? Think about the strange experiences you've brushed off as coincidence or imagination. That shadow you glimpsed in your peripheral vision. The voice you heard calling your name when no one was there. Maybe your rational mind protected you from something your instincts recognized as true. What legends exist in your own community? What stories do the older residents whisper about certain streets or buildings? Perhaps it's time to listen more carefully to the folklore around you.